The twin suns of Valora shone over the silver towers of the royal city. The palace of King Terran stood at the heart of the capital, glowing like a jewel among the clouds. Its tall crystal pillars touched the sky, and its wide halls echoed with the sound of guards moving in perfect order. The Valorans were proud beings, tall and graceful, with pale skin that shimmered like metal and eyes bright as blue fire. They believed their empire was the strongest in the galaxy. For thousands of years they had ruled star systems without challenge. But now a new name had begun to spread fear across the stars. That name was human. Inside the grand throne hall, nobles and generals gathered to hear the latest news from the front lines. The air was tense. The war against humans had lasted only 2 years, yet the Valoran fleets had already suffered heavy losses. No one could understand how a race that had barely left its home planet could destroy ships built with centuries of technology. Every report brought confusion and anger. King Terran sat on his silver throne, his tall crown shining with light. His eyes were filled with pride but also worry. He was a wise ruler, known for his fairness, but he had never faced an enemy like this. To his right stood his daughter, Princess Vera, dressed in a robe of white silk that flowed like water. She was young but known across Valora for her intelligence and calm spirit. Yet today fear darkened her face. A messenger entered, kneeling before the throne. His armor was scorched and cracked. He spoke with a trembling voice. "Your Majesty, the human fleet led by Commander Rian has destroyed our stronghold on Delta 9. The garrison has fallen. Our soldiers fought bravely, but their defenses were useless. The humans struck with perfect precision and vanished before we could counterattack." The hall fell silent. Whispers spread among the nobles. The name Rian was now known across the Valoran Empire. Some said he was not a man but a weapon. Others said he had no fear and no weakness. Many believed he was more machine than flesh. King Terran clenched his hand on the armrest of his throne. "How can a single human fleet bring down our defenses?" he asked. The messenger lowered his head. "They learn fast, Your Majesty. Every time we change our tactics, they adapt. Every time we strike, they strike back harder. Commander Rian leads them with precision we have never seen." General Kellor, an old warrior with silver scars, stepped forward. "They may be strong, but they are still human. We will crush them soon. Give me a fleet, and I will end this threat before it reaches our borders." King Terran nodded slowly, but his eyes remained troubled. He turned to his daughter. "Vera, what is your thought on this?" Vera hesitated. "Father, perhaps it is time to speak, not to fight. The humans may not seek to rule us. Maybe they defend their home. A treaty could end this bloodshed." The generals murmured in disapproval. To them, the idea of negotiating with humans was shameful. But King Terran trusted his daughter's wisdom. "If peace can be found, we will find it," he said. "We will send an envoy to meet this human commander." Vera's heart stopped. Her hands tightened around her robe. She knew what that meant. A royal envoy from Valora could only be one person. Her. "Father," she said quietly, her voice shaking, "you wish me to meet him?" King Terran looked at her with calm eyes. "Yes, you are the symbol of our empire. If peace is to be made, it must come through you. The humans will see our strength through your presence." The princess took a deep breath. She wanted to speak with courage, but the memory of Ryan's name filled her with dread. She had heard stories of him. Entire fleets defeated by his command. Fortresses falling without mercy. No one who faced him in battle had ever returned victorious. She remembered the tale of the Valoran captain who surrendered rather than face Ryan's fleet again. "Not him, father," she said suddenly. Her voice echoed through the hall. "Please, not him. I am terrified of that human warrior." The hall fell silent again. Even the guards stopped moving. The great King Terran's eyes widened for a moment. Never had his daughter spoken in fear before his court. The nobles whispered among themselves. King Terran rose from his throne. "Why do you fear him, my daughter?" he asked gently. Vera's heart raced. "Because I have seen what he can do. Every time his name appears in our reports, it brings destruction. He does not fight for greed or conquest. He fights with something else, something we do not understand. I fear facing a man who believes in something stronger than power." The king was silent for a long moment. The hall waited. Then he spoke firmly. "Fear does not rule us, Vera. We are the blood of Valora. If this human is as strong as you say, then meeting him will test our spirit. The envoy will depart in 2 days." Vera bowed her head, hiding her trembling hands. She wanted to speak again, to beg her father to change his mind, but she knew his word was final. After the meeting ended, Vera walked through the palace gardens. The twin suns were setting, painting the silver trees in shades of red and gold. Her thoughts were heavy. She had studied the humans for years, reading every report and record about their rise. They were once a scattered species, always fighting among themselves. But then something had changed. They had united under one banner, the Federation of Earth, and begun to reach for the stars. Vera stopped beside a fountain where water flowed in a circle, glowing with soft blue light. She stared at her reflection and whispered to herself, "What drives them? How can they stand against us?" She remembered her tutor's words from years ago. Humans are dangerous not because of their strength, but because of their will. They never stop. Even when broken, they rise again. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. It was her servant and closest friend, Laren, a kind young woman with silver hair tied in a braid. "Princess, the council speaks of nothing else. They say this human commander may even come here himself. Will you meet him?" Vera sighed. "I have no choice. My father has decided. I must go." Laren looked worried. "Do you think he will harm you?" "I do not know," Vera answered honestly. "But I think his strength lies not in harming others, but in forcing them to see what they are. That is what frightens me." That night, as the stars appeared over Valora, the palace glowed under the twin moons. From her balcony, Vera watched the sky. Somewhere among those stars, the human fleet was moving closer. She imagined their ships, dark, rough, and scarred, unlike the shining vessels of her people. Yet those ships had won every battle. Down below, the palace guards trained in the courtyard, their armor reflecting the moonlight. Vera watched them and wondered if courage was truly born from strength. She began to feel that her fear was not of the human himself, but of what he represented, a truth her people had long ignored. In his chamber, King Terran sat alone, reading reports from the front lines. Every page told the same story. The humans adapted faster than expected. They used smaller ships, weaker weapons, but their unity made them unstoppable. He looked out the window and whispered to himself, "What kind of leader can turn such weakness into victory?" 2 days later, the royal envoy was ready. A shining silver cruiser stood on the launch pad, its wings spread wide like a bird of light. The royal crest of Valora was engraved on its side. Inside, Princess Vera prepared herself for the journey. Her attendants dressed her in armor made for peace missions, light, elegant, but still protective. As she looked at her reflection one last time, she took a deep breath. "You are the voice of Valora," she told herself. "You must not show fear." When she stepped onto the ship, the sky above the capital shimmered with energy. The cruiser lifted slowly into the air. Below, the people watched their princess depart, unaware that the meeting ahead would change the fate of both species. As the stars stretched around the ship, Vera looked out the window. Her world was behind her now. Ahead was the unknown, the human commander whose name carried both dread and respect. She whispered softly, "Commander Rian, I will face you. Even if my heart trembles, I will face you." The ship entered the dark sea of space, its engines glowing faint blue against the endless night. Far beyond the reach of Valora's suns, another ship waited. On board, a human stood before a holographic map, studying the stars. His name was Rian. His eyes, calm and focused, turned toward the incoming signal. The meeting of two worlds was about to begin. The royal cruiser from Valora moved through space with silent grace. Its silver hull reflected distant stars, and its engines glowed with soft white light. Inside, Princess Vera sat near a window, watching the endless dark between worlds. Her attendants worked quietly, adjusting her robe and checking her communication link, but her thoughts were far away. She kept thinking about the human she was about to meet, Commander Rian. Every report, every rumor about him painted a picture of a warrior unlike any her people had ever faced. He was said to be calm in chaos, fearless when surrounded, and more dangerous with his mind than with his weapons. She wondered how such a man could exist among humans, who were once seen as weak and divided. After 2 days of travel, the cruiser slowed as it reached the neutral zone, a vast region between Valoran and human space. Floating there was a massive human flagship named Valor's Edge, the very ship that led the victories against Valora's fleets. Its design was rough, dark, and angular, made from steel rather than shining crystal. It was not beautiful like Valoran ships, yet it carried a power that could be felt even from afar. "Princess, we have arrived," said the ship's captain, a tall Valoran named Solon. They are requesting permission to dock. Vera nodded. Grant permission. The two ships aligned side by side. The airlocks opened with a hiss and a bridge of energy connected them. Vera stood straight, her head held high, her heart beating fast. Around her, 10 royal guards followed in formation, each holding a ceremonial staff. The doors ahead opened and light from the human ship spilled in. Commander Rian stepped forward. He wore a simple black uniform with light armor across his chest and shoulders. There were scars on his armor from countless battles, and his boots carried dust from alien worlds. His eyes were steady, gray like stone, and his expression calm but firm. Behind him stood only 3 human officers. They did not move unless he moved. When he reached the bridge's center, he bowed slightly, not in submission but as a sign of respect. Princess Vera of Valora, he said in a strong voice. Welcome aboard the Valor's Edge. Vera hesitated for a moment. She had expected arrogance or pride, but his tone was even, respectful, and clear. She returned the gesture with a graceful nod. Commander Ryan of Earth, I come under the flag of peace. Ryan's lips curved into a small, polite smile. Then peace will be respected here. They walked together down a long metal corridor. The walls were lined with human soldiers standing at attention. Vera noticed the differences at once. Valoran ships were bright and filled with art and color. The human ship was simple, almost cold, but everything had a purpose. No decoration, no waste, only strength and order. When they entered the main hall, a long table was waiting with seats for both sides. Holographic maps floated above the table, showing the border between the two territories. Vera took her seat opposite Ryan. Her guards stood behind her, tense and watchful. The meeting began with formal introductions. The human officers spoke of the cost of war and the need for peace. The Valoran captain presented the terms given by King Terran. Rian listened carefully, never interrupting, his eyes calm but sharp. When Vera finally spoke, her voice was clear. Commander, my father wishes to end this war. Too many lives have been lost on both sides. We offer trade, cooperation, and shared knowledge if your people will cease their advance. Rian leaned back slightly. Your words are noble, Princess, but peace cannot be built on fear. Your fleets invaded our space first. You saw us as lesser beings. Now that we fight back, you come to make peace. Why now? His words were direct but not cruel. Vera felt their weight. She looked into his eyes and saw no hatred there, only truth. Because we were wrong, she said softly. We thought your kind would never rise against us. We believed strength alone ruled the stars. But you showed us something else. You fight for more than power. The hall fell quiet. Ryan studied her face, searching for deception, but found none. If that is true, he said slowly, then we may still have hope for peace. At that moment, one of the Valoran generals at the table, General Kalor, spoke with anger. Commander Ryan, your victories have cost us entire colonies. We demand that you withdraw your fleets from our outer systems. If you do not, we will return with force. Ryan turned his head slightly toward the general. You have already tried force, he said calmly. It brought you here asking for peace. The general's face hardened and his hand moved to his weapon, but Vera raised her hand to stop him. Enough, she said. We are here to talk, not to fight. Ryan's expression remained steady. He respected her control over her people. Princess Vera, he said, your courage to face me honors you, but I will only accept peace if your father accepts that humans are equals. No empire, no ruler will stand above another. Vera nodded. Then we will bring this message back to him. I will make him see. The first meeting ended without full agreement, but something had changed. As the Valoran group prepared to leave, Vera paused near the doorway. She turned to Ryan and said quietly, You fight with your mind, not only with your weapons. That is why we could not win against you. Ryan replied, We fight because we must protect what we love, not because we enjoy battle. Those words stayed in her mind as she returned to her ship. Later, as the cruiser moved away from the human flagship, Vera stood again by the window. She could still see the Valor's Edge shrinking into the distance. Her fear had not vanished completely, but it had changed. It was no longer the fear of a monster. It was the fear of understanding too late. On board the human ship, Ryan stood in the command room with his officers. One of them, a young lieutenant, asked, Do you believe the aliens truly want peace, sir? Ryan looked at the stars. I believe the princess does. She carries the burden of a world that has forgotten humility. Perhaps she will remind them. His officers nodded. Ryan turned away from the window. Prepare the next operation. We hold our positions, but we do not advance. Let them decide if they truly wish to end this war. On the Valoran ship, Vera entered her private chamber. She removed her armor and sat near the glowing wall screen that showed her home planet far away. Laren entered quietly, holding a tray with a warm drink. You met him, Laren said softly. Was he as terrifying as you imagined? Vera thought for a long time. He was not what I expected. He was calm, honest, and strong in a way I cannot explain. I felt as if he carried the pain of his whole species in his voice. Laren smiled faintly. Then perhaps he is not your enemy after all. Vera looked out the window again. Perhaps not. But he is still dangerous. Not because of hatred, but because he believes in something greater than power, and that makes him unstoppable. The next day, as they neared Valora, a communication signal arrived from Earth's fleet. It was a message from Rian. The holographic image appeared before Vera. He stood with his hands behind his back, his tone steady. Princess Vera, he said, I respect your courage to face us in peace. I hope your people will choose wisely. If war continues, we will fight, but if peace is possible, we will build it together. The choice will define both our worlds. Vera replayed the message again and again, listening to the calm certainty in his voice. She felt something inside her shift. For the first time, she wondered if humanity's greatest power was not their technology or their weapons, but their faith in their own will. When the ship landed back on Valora, crowds gathered to welcome her. King Terran waited at the palace gate. Vera bowed before him. Father, I have met the human commander. The king looked at her with concern. Tell me, child, is he as terrible as they say? Vera raised her head and answered quietly. He is terrible only to those who seek war. To those who seek peace, he is a mirror that shows what we could become if we had his courage. The king said nothing, but his eyes grew thoughtful. The court waited for his command, but he only turned away, saying, Tomorrow we will decide our next move. That night the stars over Valora burned brighter than ever. Somewhere among them the human fleet waited. Two civilizations stood on the edge of history, and the choice between war and peace rested in the hands of a young princess and a human warrior who had already changed the stars with his will. Morning light touched the silver city of Valora. Inside the royal palace, silence filled the grand hall as King Terran met with his council. The news from his daughter's journey had reached every corner of the empire. Many nobles waited to hear what decision the king would make. Would he choose peace or continue the war that had already taken too many lives? King Terran sat on his throne. His golden robe draped over his shoulders. Around him stood generals, ministers, and scholars. Princess Vera entered quietly and bowed before him. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed the weight of what she had seen. My daughter, the king said, you have met the human commander. Tell us everything you have learned. Vera spoke slowly so that every word carried across the hall. She described the human ship, its design, and its people. She spoke of Commander Rian's calm nature, his discipline, and his belief that peace could only exist between equals. When she finished, the hall was silent. Some of the generals exchanged uncertain looks. Others frowned with disbelief. General Kalor stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said, the princess has been deceived. The humans speak of peace because they fear our power. They wish to buy time so they can strike again. We must not trust them. Vera shook her head. You did not see him, General. He does not fear us. He respects strength, but he does not crave war. His courage is not born from hate. It is born from duty. The general's tone hardened. With respect, Princess, you let the enemy's words cloud your heart. This Rian is a soldier. He has destroyed half our outer colonies. If you think he seeks friendship, you are blind. The hall filled with voices as nobles argued. Some supported peace, others demanded revenge. King Terran raised his hand and silence returned. I have heard enough, the king said. If we cannot decide through words, then we will decide through proof. Let the human commander come here. Let him face one of our champions. If he wins with honor, we will believe his words of peace. If he falls, the humans will know Valora still stands strong, the court murmured in surprise. A duel between the strongest of Valora and the human commander would decide the fate of both nations. Princess Vera's heart tightened. She had feared this would happen. Father, she said softly, if you do this, you risk turning peace into another battle. Please reconsider. But King Terran had made his choice. Prepare the arena, he ordered. Send a message to the human fleet. Commander Rian is invited to Valora for a formal challenge. Across space, the human flagship Valor's Edge received the royal message. Commander Ryan read it carefully. His officers waited for his answer. "It is a trap," said Captain Moore. "They will use the duel to humiliate you or to start another fight." Ryan folded the message and placed it on the table. "Perhaps, but if they wish to test us, then we will face it. I will go." "Alone, sir?" Moore asked. "Yes," Ryan replied. "If peace must be earned through strength, then I will show them what strength means to a human." The next day, a single human transport ship landed on Valora. Thousands gathered in the capital's grand arena to witness the event. The sky shimmered with banners and the air was filled with the sound of drums. Soldiers lined the walls as the crowd cheered for their champion. At the center of the arena stood General Kalor, dressed in shining armor, holding a staff of pure energy. He was a veteran of many wars, tall and proud, his eyes burning with pride for Valora. Then the gates opened. Commander Rian entered wearing simple combat gear. No royal armor, no golden marks, only the same black uniform he wore on the battlefield. The crowd fell silent as he walked to the center, his step steady, his gaze fixed. Vera sat beside her father in the royal box. Her hands were cold as she watched the human step forward. She remembered his calm eyes, his steady voice, and the strange peace he carried even in danger. A Valoran official raised his voice. "By order of King Terran, this is a trial of honor. The duel will not end in death. The first to yield or fall shall lose. Let the strength of truth decide." The signal sounded. The duel began. General Kalor moved first, striking with the glowing staff. Energy flashed as it cut through the air. Ryan dodged the blow and countered with a quick step forward, landing a strike with his arm that forced the general back. The crowd gasped. No one expected the human to move so fast. Kalor attacked again, his weapon sweeping in wide arcs. Sparks flew as Ryan blocked the strikes with his forearm guard. He waited for the right moment, then used the general's momentum to throw him off balance. The Valoran stumbled but recovered quickly. "You fight well for a creature of soil," Kalor said through gritted teeth. Ryan's voice was calm. "And you fight with pride. But pride without purpose is weakness." The words made Kalor angrier. He launched a powerful attack, slamming his staff into the ground. A wave of energy rippled through the arena. Dust rose into the air. For a moment, Rian disappeared in the cloud. The crowd cheered, thinking it was over. But then Ryan emerged, unharmed, his uniform scorched but his eyes steady. He stepped forward, deflecting another strike, then disarmed the general with a sudden twist of his hand. The staff flew across the arena and landed on the sand. Kalor fell to his knees, breathing hard. Ryan stood above him but did not strike. "End it," Kalor said, his pride broken. Ryan shook his head. "No, I do not fight to destroy. I fight to teach. Your people think strength means never falling, but true strength is standing again after you fall." The arena was silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Ryan stepped back and helped Kalor to his feet. The general looked into his eyes and saw no mockery, only respect. From the royal box, King Terran rose slowly. He looked down at the human who had defeated his best warrior without hatred or cruelty. The crowd remained quiet, waiting for the king's judgment. Princess Vera stood, her heart filled with emotion. She turned to her father. "Now you see why I feared him," she said softly. "Not because he brings destruction, but because he shows us what we are not." The king's gaze stayed on Ryan. "You have won with honor," he called out. "Valora will not deny such strength. You are a warrior of truth. Approach the throne." Ryan walked forward as the guards opened the gate. The crowd parted to make way for him. When he reached the steps of the throne, he bowed slightly. "Your Majesty," he said, "I did not come to humiliate your people. I came to end this endless war. Let our worlds rise together instead of tearing each other apart." King Terran studied him for a long moment. His pride battled with his wisdom. He knew that if he refused, the war would continue and destroy countless lives. Finally, he nodded. "We will speak again in peace, Commander. Valora will consider your words." The arena erupted in applause. Some cheered for the king, others for the human. For the first time, both sides shared the same sound of respect. That night, a great banquet was held in the palace to honor the duel. The humans were treated as guests, not enemies. Rian sat beside Vera at the table, surrounded by noble faces that watched him with curiosity. Vera looked at him and said quietly, "You could have ended him, but you chose not to." Why, Ryan answered, because victory means nothing if it breeds hatred. We fight so that one day no one has to. Vera listened to his words and felt her heart grow lighter. She saw in him not just a warrior, but a leader whose strength came from compassion. Later, as the night grew quiet, she stood on the palace balcony. Below, lights from the city shimmered like stars. Ryan joined her, his gaze fixed on the sky. Your world is beautiful, he said. So is yours, she replied. Different but beautiful in its own way. He smiled slightly. Then maybe there is a place for both. Vera turned to face him. I will speak to my father. We can build something new, Ryan nodded. Then the next battle will not be fought with weapons but with words and trust. They stood together under the twin moons, two souls from distant worlds who had found a path toward peace. Far below, the people of Valora talked about the duel. They spoke of the human who fought without hate, and the princess who dared to believe in peace. The story spread quickly, and soon every corner of the empire knew that something had changed. The war was not yet over, but hope had begun to rise. And in the heart of Princess Vera, the fear she once felt had turned into something far stronger: respect. The night over Valora was calm, but inside the royal palace the halls were alive with discussion. The duel had changed everything. Nobles whispered in small groups about the human commander, about his strength and about the way he had defeated General Kalor without cruelty. Even those who had been skeptical began to wonder if the stories they had believed about humans were wrong. Princess Vera could not sleep. She kept thinking of Commander Ryan, his calm, steady presence, his ability to fight without hate, and the way he respected her people left a mark on her mind. The fear she had felt before meeting him was gone, replaced by curiosity and awe. She needed to understand him better. At dawn, she made her decision. She would visit the human camp personally. She would see the man behind the stories. She dressed simply in light robes and soft armor, and took only a few guards with her. Laren, her closest friend, followed silently, her worry clear. Princess, Laren said quietly as they walked through the palace corridors. Are you sure this is safe? Vera nodded. It is the only way I will understand him. I need to see why he fights and why he does not hate us. The human camp was set just outside the city, a small collection of dark, sturdy tents and ships. Human soldiers moved with precision, carrying out tasks with quiet determination. Nothing was wasted, nothing unnecessary. Everything had a purpose. Commander Rian stood near the center of the camp. He noticed Vera's approach and stepped forward. His expression was calm, but his eyes showed a hint of curiosity. Princess Vera, he said politely, you should not be here alone. I am not alone, Vera replied. I have Laren and my guards. But I wish to speak with you away from the court. I need to understand why you fight, why your people can challenge Valora so strongly. Ryan nodded. Very well. Walk with me. They moved along a narrow path between tents. Soldiers looked at the princess with respect, but none approached. Ryan spoke in a low voice, steady and thoughtful. Humans were weak once, he began. We fought among ourselves for thousands of years. We destroyed our own cities. We learned nothing from pain because we did not see the value in it. Then slowly we began to change. We learned that every failure taught us something. Every loss showed us a way to survive. Every challenge made us stronger. Vera listened carefully. But your people are still smaller in number than ours. How can so few defeat so many? Because we fight not for glory, not for territory, and not for power, Rian said. We fight because we protect our home and each other. That makes even a small number dangerous. Strength is not just in numbers. It is in determination, courage, and willingness to learn. Vera nodded, feeling a mix of fear and admiration. She had been raised to believe that strength meant dominance, that ruling others was proof of power. But Ryan's words challenged everything she had learned. They reached a quiet tent at the edge of the camp. Ryan invited her inside. The interior was simple. Maps covered the walls, and a few personal items were neatly placed. There was no luxury, no decoration, only function. Princess, Ryan said, I have fought many battles, seen many worlds burn, and faced many enemies. But I do not hate Valora. I respect your people. I respect your strength. That is why I do not seek to destroy you. My fight is not against you personally, but against the endless cycle of war that kills so many unnecessarily. Vera felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had feared him before, thought he was a monster of war. Now she saw a human who understood life and death differently than her people. You make it sound simple, she said. Yet so many of my people still fear you. They see you as a threat they cannot beat. Rian smiled faintly. Fear is natural. It is what makes us cautious and careful. But it becomes dangerous when it stops us from learning. Your people have power, yes, but their fear of humans makes them blind to lessons that could save lives. Vera sat down on a small bench, her mind racing. She had always believed that power meant victory, that strength meant survival. But Rian showed her that courage, determination, and purpose could outweigh raw power. Commander, she asked quietly, do you believe peace is possible between Valora and Earth? Ryan looked out the small tent window toward the stars. Yes, but only if both sides learn to respect each other. Peace is not a gift. It is earned. Both sides must choose it willingly or war will continue. And if war continues, there will be no true winner. Vera thought about her father, about the council, and about the generals who still demanded revenge. She realized the challenge ahead was not only facing humans but convincing her people that strength could come from understanding, not destruction. I want to help, she said softly. I want Valora to see what you see. I want them to understand. Ryan turned toward her, his eyes calm and clear. Then you must be brave, not in battle but in thought. Your people will resist change because it is easier to fight than to learn. If you can show them that courage and understanding are stronger than weapons, you may be the bridge that ends this war. Vera felt the weight of his words. For the first time, she understood the meaning of true strength. It was not in dominating others, not in building fleets or conquering planets. It was in the ability to learn, to teach, and to inspire. They walked outside the tent together. The human soldiers saluted quietly as the princess passed. Vera noticed how every soldier moved with purpose and pride, yet without arrogance. Each one seemed to carry the same quiet determination as Ryan. Your people have spirit, she said. I see now why they survive against such odds. Ryan nodded. And your people have strength, he replied. But they have not yet learned how to use it wisely. You may be the first to teach them. Vera looked at the night sky, the stars stretching endlessly above them. Somewhere beyond those stars, fleets of humans and Velorans had faced each other in battle, each believing their way was correct. Now, in this quiet moment, she felt that the choice of the future rested on understanding, not force. When it was time to return to the palace, Vera walked back slowly. Her guards noticed a change in her demeanor. She was no longer trembling or fearful. Instead, she held herself with quiet confidence. She understood that the human warrior she had feared was not a monster, but a teacher. Back in her chamber, she spoke with Laren. I have seen the truth, she said. Commander Rian does not fight for power or hatred. He fights for what is right, and that makes him stronger than anyone I have ever known. Laren looked thoughtful. Then what will you do, Princess? Vera smiled faintly. I will speak to my father. I will tell him what I have learned. If we can understand this, then perhaps we can stop this war before more lives are lost. That night she could not sleep again. But this time it was not fear that kept her awake. It was hope. She imagined a future where humans and Velorans could stand side by side, learning from one another. She saw herself speaking to her father, her voice firm, guiding the council toward peace. Meanwhile, Ryan looked at the stars from his ship, thinking of Valora. He knew that the princess carried the potential to change her people. The future of both civilizations could depend on her courage, her understanding, and her willingness to see strength in ways that were not measured by fleets or weapons. The galaxy was full of danger, but in this quiet moment, two beings from very different worlds had found a connection. A human warrior and an alien princess standing together not as enemies, but as leaders with the potential to shape history. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The council would debate, generals would argue, and the people of Valora would watch closely. But the seed of understanding had been planted, and in time it might grow into something far stronger than any weapon in the stars. Princess Vera looked at her reflection in the chamber window. She whispered softly, I understand now. Strength is not power. Strength is courage, wisdom, and hope, and perhaps that is the most human thing of all. The night ended with quiet determination. Valora was still proud, still powerful, but now it had a new lesson. The human warrior, Commander Rian, had shown them that true strength was measured not by what you could destroy, but by what you could inspire. The stars above Valora seemed brighter that night, carrying the promise of change, the promise of peace, and the promise that even in a galaxy full of conflict, Understanding could become the greatest weapon of all. The palace of Valora gleamed under the light of the twin suns. The city was alive with activity as news of the human duel spread across the empire. Citizens gathered in streets and plazas, talking in whispers and excited voices. For the first time, many began to see humans not as weak, but as a people to be respected. Inside the royal court, King Terran sat on his throne, flanked by the council and his daughter, Princess Vera. The morning had brought a new message from Commander Ryan. The holographic image of the human appeared before the assembly. "Steady and calm as always, Your Majesty," Ryan said. "I come not to conquer but to build understanding. If Valora chooses peace, we will honor it. If war continues, we will defend ourselves, but the choice lies with your people," the council murmured in response. Some generals frowned, still thinking of strength and victory. Others nodded, sensing the wisdom in Ryan's words. Vera stepped forward. Her voice was clear and strong. "Father council members, I have walked among the humans. I've seen their strength, their courage, and their understanding. They fight not for glory or conquest, but for life, home, and the future. They are not our enemies. They can be our allies." The room fell silent. Many looked at her with disbelief, while others listened closely. King Terran studied his daughter. He saw her eyes shining with truth. He remembered her fear, and how she had faced it to understand Commander Ryan. His mind weighed honor, pride, and the future of his empire. "Very well," he said finally. "We will meet the human commander again, this time not as enemies but as equals. Let our discussion begin." Preparations were made for the meeting in the Grand Hall. Human officers arrived alongside Ryan, and the palace welcomed them as guests rather than invaders. The atmosphere was tense at first, but it soon shifted to one of curiosity and respect. Ryan bowed slightly to King Terran and Princess Vera. "Your Majesty, Princess, I'm honored to meet again under these circumstances. Let us speak freely and honestly, for that is the only way peace can last." King Terran inclined his head. "We agree, Commander. Speak openly, and we shall do the same." The discussion began with trade agreements, technology sharing, and scientific collaboration. Ryan proposed a joint research program between Earth and Valora, combining human ingenuity with Valoran resources. The council was amazed at how practical and fair the ideas were. Vera watched closely. She saw the hope growing in her people as they realized that peace could offer more than war ever had. Wealth, knowledge, and growth could come without bloodshed. One of the generals, still cautious, asked, "Commander, how can we trust humans? Your victories make some fear your intentions." Ryan replied calmly, "Trust is earned, not demanded. We understand your fear, but I promise we do not seek domination. We seek respect, and a chance for both our peoples to rise together. Strength is meaningless if it destroys everyone around it." The words resonated. Even the skeptical council members began to see the logic and fairness in his reasoning. Later, the conversation turned to strategy and defense. Valora had powerful fleets and advanced weapons, but Ryan suggested methods that emphasize cooperation rather than destruction. He spoke of shared patrols, joint training exercises, and mutual defense agreements. The Valorans realized that humans were not just courageous. They were clever and adaptable, using intelligence and planning to multiply their effectiveness. Princess Vera noticed the council's expressions. Many were nodding, some smiling. They were beginning to believe in the possibility of lasting peace. After hours of discussion, the meeting ended. Commander Ryan stood, his voice steady. "Let us not forget that peace requires effort. It is not automatic. Both sides must work together, respect each other, and learn from their mistakes. Only then will the future be safe and bright for all." King Terran rose. "Your words are wise, Commander. We will take them to heart. Valora is ready to walk a new path." Vera's heart lifted. She had seen her people transform from fear to hope, from pride to understanding. She turned to Ryan. "Thank you. Not just for your words, but for showing me what true strength means." Ryan smiled faintly. "The courage was yours to find, Princess. You faced fear to seek truth. That is what makes you a leader." Over the next few weeks, humans and Valorans worked together. Trade routes were opened, joint academies formed, and fleets coordinated patrols of nearby systems. For the first time in history, two civilizations once at war moved as allies. The people of Valora began to tell stories about the human warrior, not as a figure of fear, but as a symbol of courage and wisdom. Children spoke of him in schools, and young soldiers trained with his strategies in mind. He had shown them that strength was more than weapons. One evening, Princess Vera stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city. The twin moons reflected off the silver towers. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment and peace. Laren joined her. "The Empire has changed because of you," she said quietly. Vera nodded. "Not just because of me, Laren. The humans helped us see what we were missing. Commander Ryan taught us more than any book or lesson could. He reminded us that courage is more than fighting. It is understanding, helping, and building." Below, the city lights glimmered, showing life continuing in harmony. Velerans and humans worked side by side on construction projects, research stations, and training grounds. The presence of humans no longer brought fear but respect and curiosity. In his quarters aboard the Valor's Edge, Ryan received reports from his officers. They noted the changes among Valorans, the cooperation and the rapid progress of joint efforts. He smiled quietly, knowing the future would be shaped not by conflict, but by the courage to choose understanding over fear. He sent a message to Princess Vera. "The future is brighter because of those who choose peace. Continue to lead with courage and wisdom. Valora and Earth have the chance to become something greater together." Vera read the message and felt a sense of connection across the stars. She realized that leaders did not just shape armies or empires. They shaped hearts, minds, and the willingness to believe in something better. Weeks turned into months. The Valoran Empire grew stronger not by conquest but by alliance. Knowledge flowed freely between worlds, and old rivalries faded. Where once there had been fear, there was trust. Where once there had been doubt, there was hope. Princess Vera often walked among her people, observing the progress. Soldiers trained alongside humans, artisans shared skills, and children played together in the city plazas. Every day reminded her that courage and understanding could achieve more than any weapon. King Terran, watching his daughter's efforts, felt pride beyond words. He had learned a lesson himself. Strength was not only in armies or technology. True strength was in wisdom, courage, and the ability to embrace change. One day, Vera visited the arena where the duel had taken place. The sand was swept clean, the stands repaired, and a statue of balance and courage was placed in the center. The statue depicted a human warrior and a Valoran general standing side by side, arms extended as if shaking hands. Vera touched the statue lightly. "You changed more than my people," she whispered to the wind. "You changed me." From afar, Commander Rian watched Valora's twin moons rise above the horizon. He knew the galaxy would face challenges again, but he also knew that humans and Valorans had taken the first step toward a new era. Courage, respect, and understanding had become the foundation of peace. As the sun rose over Valora, the city glittered like a jewel. Princess Vera stood on her balcony, her eyes toward the stars. She smiled, knowing that the future was no longer defined by fear, but by choice, unity, and courage. The story of the human warrior spread throughout the galaxy. Aliens who once mocked humans now spoke of their courage and wisdom. Humans who faced impossible odds found hope in their own potential. The legend was not of violence but of heart, will, and the ability to inspire others to greatness. In the end, the human warrior, Commander Ryan, had not conquered Valora by force. He had conquered fear itself. And through the courage of a young princess, the galaxy witnessed a new alliance. Two worlds stood together, ready to face the stars as equals, friends, and allies. Princess Vera turned from the balcony, her heart full of hope. She knew challenges would come, but she also knew that courage, understanding, and wisdom would guide them through. For the first time, she truly believed that peace was not only possible, but inevitable when strength was measured by what it could build rather than what it could destroy. The twin suns of Valora rose high, casting golden light over the city. Humans and Valorans worked, laughed, and learned together. The Empire had changed forever, and so had the story of the human warrior who taught a princess and a people the meaning of true strength. And across the stars, humanity shone not as a conqueror but as a symbol of courage, hope, and unity.